For decades now, Republicans have presented themselves to the country as the party of morality, the real Americans, the patriots, the protectors of our children, the defenders of our freedoms, the champions of virtue, both at home and abroad. But that image gets a little hard to maintain when the party leader spends the weekend cheating at golf on his own golf course and drowning out questions from the press about a sex trafficking scandal while music blares. Of course, the cheating at golf is nothing new, and it sort of pales into comparison to having your party leader be an adjudicated rapist or a treasonous traitor who incited an insurrection against his own government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, the Republicans seem to have been very comfortable with their hypocrisy. It's getting harder to ignore these days, though, as Republican after Republican got fact-checked live on television, from CNN to CBS, even Fox. GOP leaders were cornered with their own lies in real time. Finally, wow, what a concept. You think they could have been doing that all along? So let's get into it. But before we do, please, if you appreciate actual facts over spin, like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. On Sunday's Meet the Press, NBC's Kristen Welker, of all people, grilled House Speaker Mike Johnson, who tried to argue that the reason people are starving in Gaza is, I bet you think I'm going to say Joe Biden, right? No, Hamas. Yes, Johnson really said that. Take a look.
The world has been watching what has been unfolding in Gaza. We are going to show some of these pictures. They're very disturbing, Mr. Speaker. Of course, this humanitarian crisis, children starving to death. Israel has now paused military operations amid the international outcry over this hunger crisis. Are Israel's actions too little, too late?
Israel, since this war began, has supplied over 94,000 truckloads full of food. It's enough food to feed 2 million people for 2 years, trying to get that into Gaza. But Hamas has stolen the food, a huge amount. In fact, in 2024, the numbers are that Hamas profited over $500 million in stolen food aid that was supposed to go to these poor people who needed it.
Mr. Speaker, we are out of time. We should note the New York Times just yesterday did report that the IDF never found proof that Hamas had systematically stolen deliveries of aid provided by the UN and other groups. We do really appreciate your joining us, and I hear you defending the Israeli position on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, we do really appreciate your lying, taking a time out of your busy schedule to lie to us instead of lying to everybody else. So what Welker slipped in at the very end was gratuitous in my view, but right before the gratuitous part, what she said is key. On Saturday, the New York Times published a damning article exposing the long-running Israeli government claim that Hamas steals UN aid as false. The Times cited multiple Israeli military officials who admitted there is no evidence Hamas is intercepting aid. In fact, one official even praised the UN system as, quote unquote, highly effective when it is not being sabotaged. The Israeli military even announced on Saturday that it would resume aid drops after pressure from the EU and at least 28 governments who issued a joint statement condemning the government's restrictions. Welker apparently was not done holding feet to the fire. Later that day, Senator Lindsey Graham was confronted with his own hypocrisy. The topic this time was the Republican Party's craven accusation that then-President Barack Obama somehow committed election interference in 2016, which, let's see, what happened in 2016? Oh, yes, that would be the election that Donald got into the White House the first time around. Like clockwork, Graham has been out front pushing the claim of Obama's election interference, treating it like settled fact, despite something that probably should give the rest of us sane people pause: the complete lack of evidence. Of course, this was not always Lindsey Graham's stance, to the extent that he has stances. Welker used the moment to remind Graham and the rest of the people watching what he used to sound like before he traded every last remaining shred of his credibility for loyalty to Donald Trump. Take a look.
There was already a Trump-appointed special counsel at the time investigating the origins of the Russia probe, but did not find any evidence of political interference. And Senator, at the time, you agreed with the findings of the intelligence community. I want to play back what you said at the time. Take a look.
Yep. The Russians did it. It was the Russians who tried to interfere in our election. Every member of the committee agrees it was the Russians. They didn't change the outcome, but they did release information embarrassing to the Democratic Party. It did affect Hillary Clinton. There's only one person in Washington that I know of that has any doubt about what Russia did in our election, and it's President Trump.
Senator, are you now saying that you don't believe that Russia tried to interfere in the 2016 election?
What I'm saying is that this is new evidence. This is something I didn't know, you didn't know, that in 2016, Obama suggested, I don't like the outcome, that there's no evidence Russia was involved.
Hold on, Senator. As you know, former President Obama has weighed in through a spokesperson. He says that's just patently false. I actually spoke to Susan Miller, who's a former senior CIA officer who helped oversee the 2017 intelligence assessment on Russian interference. She says it's completely false that Obama or anyone else asked them to change or sway their investigation. She says they all... She says, and she's a Republican, says they all would have quit if that had happened. Senator, are you trying to rewrite history to distract from the Epstein matter, Senator?
No, I'm trying to let you know and the media know that we found something we didn't know before.
The answer that Graham cannot possibly give is, yes, of course we're making all of this shit up because we need a distraction. And what greater distraction than accusing a former president of having tried to steal an election? Oh, wait a minute. That actually happened. Oh, but Donald Trump is the one who tried to steal the 2020 election, not Barack Obama, who tried to steal the 2016 election. And again, we should remind ourselves, why are they doing this now? One, considering there's literally no evidence of this being a thing at all. And two, all they are doing is shining a much, much brighter light on the thing that they want us all to ignore. Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump's decades-long friendship. So, I mean, I guess we owe these guys a debt of gratitude. Keep doing what you're doing, Lindsey. But Graham, of course, is not the only one who has been debunked trying to blame Obama, not just for the election in 2016, but Jeffrey Epstein. Most notably, here's Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, who joined Jake Tapper on CNN's State of the Union. Mullin tried to defend Donald's refusal to release the Epstein files, and his argument became so incredibly convoluted that he got tangled up in it. First, Mullin claimed that Attorney General Pam Bondi can't release the files because only judges can make that information public. But since that's a lie, Jake Tapper pushed back, pointing out that Bondi had promised to release more. In other words, only judges can release grand jury materials. But for years now, Donald and Pam Bondi have been promising to release the investigative files that the FBI has complete control over. So Mullin pivoted, throwing out a wild new claim that I've no doubt that they have been workshopping at Republican summer camp, that Epstein struck his 2009 plea deal with Barack Obama. Except here's the thing. I mean, it's a couple of things. One, that's insane. Just says that would never happen. But also, the math doesn't work. Not even close. So take a look at this.
But remember, there was a plea deal that was struck in 2009, way before I was in office, way before Trump was even considering to be in office, way before Pam Bondi was in office, way before Kash Patel was director. 2009, there was a sweetheart plea deal that was made underneath the Obama administration with Epstein. And that sweetheart has not been exposed.
No, it was 2000.
Not? Well, when was it third? It was 2008. It was the U.S. attorney at the time was a guy named Alex Acosta. He was a Bush appointee. He went on to become President Trump's Secretary of Labor. It all took place in 2008.
Who was in office at the time?
2008, George W. Bush.
Who was in office at the time?
George W. Bush.
No, 2009 is when the case came out, and it was and Obama was in office at the time.
It's not true.
Well, thank you, Jake Tapper, for doing some actual fact-checking. That's awesome. Let's do that all the time. Look how easy that was. It's so easy. On Twitter, NBC's Tom Winter was quick to fact-check Mullin, citing the Justice Department Inspector General report from 2020. So let's walk through the timeline with him, shall we? Quote, May 2007, federal prosecutor submits a draft 60-count indictment against Epstein, unquote. And then, quote, NPA was signed instead in September 2007, unquote. Finally, quote, after exhausting his legal efforts, Epstein fulfills NPA obligations in June 2008, unquote. So just a reminder to Senator Mullin, all of that happened before Obama even took office. You would think that a sitting senator of the United States of America would know that elections happen at the end of a year, but the winning candidate doesn't actually take office until the beginning of the next year. So yes, Barack Obama won the 2008 presidential election, but he did not become president of the United States until January 20th, 2009. Either Mullin is lying, therefore, or he's a sitting senator who doesn't understand how elections work in this country. Either way, it's bad. But I'm always, when it comes to these Republicans, going with it's both of them. They're lying and they're complete ignoramuses about how their own government works. Meanwhile, on CBS's Face the Nation, Russ Vought, a former OMB director turned MAGA whisperer, I think he's always been a MAGA whisperer, but what have you, he got caught red-handed trying to dodge a question about cuts to cancer research.
Some of the funds that do expire in September have also been held up on the health front. Senator Katie Britt of Alabama, 13 other Republicans came out with a letter saying that you've been slow in releasing funds for the National Institute of Health for research into cardiovascular disease, cancer. Are those funds going to be released?
Again, we're going through the same process with the NIH that we did with the education, but we're going to have to go line by line to make sure the NIH is funded.
Are you going to release the cancer funding research and the
We're going to continue to do the same process that we have gone through with regard to the Department of Education at every one of these agencies.
Before September, that money will be released?
And we will release that funding when we are done with that review.
Because as you know, there's concern that you're withholding the money, hoping it just won't be spent. I mean, if you look at the White House budget, it does call for a 26% cut to HHS. $18 billion cut to NIH. Is this just a backdoor way to make those cuts happen?
Well, I don't want to speak to any specific program with regard to what we might do with regard to rescissions throughout the end of this fiscal year, but we certainly recognize that we have the ability and the executive tools to fund less than what Congress appropriated and to use the tools that the Impoundment Control Act, a law that we're not entirely thrilled with, gives us to send up rescissions towards the end of the fiscal year.
These people are quite something, aren't they? They are defunding cancer research, and they are trying to come up with as many ways as possible to convince people that that's not actually what's happening, even though I'm pretty sure that organizations that fight cancer can recognize when they're not getting their funding at the same levels they used to. Why are they doing this? Why are they lying about cutting cancer research? Because I don't think there's an actual empathetic human being on the planet, or even sociopaths with cancer or sociopaths who have people in their lives with cancer who would be against funding cancer research. But why defund cancer research at all? Because they're sociopaths who actually don't care at all, even about people they may have in their lives who have cancer. So there you go. It's that simple. Finally, over on Fox, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick joined host Shannon Bream to do his usual song and dance about the fantastic decisions Donald Trump has made in order to secure our country's future, since he declared Liberation Day. But when Bream pulled out hard numbers showing how far Donald's approval numbers have tanked in a relatively short period of time, Lutnick did everything but an actual backflip in order to spin those facts. Watch.
Folks are nervous. We have brand new polling on that this week. And when we asked in our Fox News polling how people are feeling about things, the president is underwater by double digits on the economy, on inflation, and tariffs. And they may be reacting to reports like this one from the Yale Budget Lab, estimating that Americans now face the highest tariff rate since 1910, an average cost of $2,800 per household this year. So you keep saying Americans are going to love these deals. They're very skeptical and they're worried at this point.
Well, I think you'll see as they flow through the market. But what's going to happen is very few products are actually going to move their price. And basically $700, $800 billion, maybe it's possible we get near $1 trillion of revenue will come into the United States of America, reducing our deficit. And what do you think is paying for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, right? These are the monies that are going against that. So I think if you take a look at the whole thing, it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, my. Listen, it's always enervating to have to listen to somebody with the intellectual capacity of a sea slug try to sound like he knows what he's talking about. But if you listen carefully, what is Lutnick and many other people like Scott Bessent actually doing? They are not talking about what's happening in real time. They're always talking about what is going to happen. This incredible golden age that will be upon us without any factual evidence whatsoever, because how do you present evidence about something that has not yet happened? You can't. So just lie about it. Now, Lutnick should probably take a break from doing the kind of high risk, low reward mental gymnastics routine that he's constantly trying to pull off. Sea slugs just aren't that nimble. But he did try to claim that Donald eliminated taxes on Social Security benefits, which is absolutely false. That provision never made it into the final version of the big abominable bill. According to Garrett Watson, who's the director of policy analysis at the Tax Foundation, quote, the bill offered some tax reduction for beneficiaries, but it's far from a full repeal of taxes on Social Security benefits, unquote. CBS's News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady breaks that down.
So it doesn't technically eliminate those taxes. You're not going to see a bonus check or another lump sum in your Social Security check that you get each month. What it does is allow up to a $6,000 tax deduction from your federal income taxes. So there's a couple stipulations, though. You have to be 65 years or older, and you have to make $75,000 or less to reap the full benefits of that $6,000 deduction. $150,000 if you are filing jointly and you're married. So certainly you are going to see a benefit. It's going to make things better. You're going to have more money in your pocket at the end of the year if you do sort of fall within those areas. But I think it's really important that you're not actually removing the tax on that check that you're receiving every month. It's an important nuance in how that bill handles this.
When are we going to just start accepting the fact that hardworking people who have been putting money into Social Security for their entire lives don't deserve tax breaks or tax cuts? Only really, really, really rich people do. I mean, as soon as we accept that hard reality, I think then maybe at long last we can make America great again. Actually, that's not going to happen. But this weekend, we saw actual proof that when confronted with actual facts, when fact-checked, in fact, on live television by reporters and journalists and hosts of programs who come prepared, all of the smoke and mirrors evaporate. Live fact checks expose it all. And Republicans cannot continue to hide behind the buzzwords. The misdirection completely fails in its mission to misdirect, and the spin just won't work. So, if your talking points crumble under direct questioning, your credibility is gone. The lies aren't just catching up, though. They're actually overtaking the narrative. And that is one thing that we saw happen in real time this weekend, which I think leads to this conclusion. Republicans, accept the reality. Your future is Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump's potential role in that absolute self-created catastrophe. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.